Ava Cross, convicted of killing his wife and his two stepdaughters, aged 18 and 15, was ultimately given the death penalty for the horrific crimes he committed. Not only is he a coward, he is also a failure, as he tried to kill himself and didn't succeed. He ultimately fractured his skull and became paralyzed from the waist down. He would eventually go back to court and get clemency and get his death sentence overturned to life in prison. Disemboweled, bleeding out on the shower floor of a maximum security unit. I guess third time's the charm. Let's get into it. Ava Cross, who will be responsible for the murders of his wife and two stepdaughters, was found dead in a shower at the Washington State Penitentiary in Walla Walla Sunday, according to the Washington Department of Corrections. Prior to that, he committed a triple murder, March 6, 1999, arguing with his wife, Ms. Baldwin. Cross stabbed her to death along with her daughters, Salome Holly, 18, and Amanda Baldwin, 15. He would ultimately be arrested after another daughter, Anaka Baldwin, 13, escaped and called police. The Kings County Superior Court jury decided in 2001 that the piece of shit Cross should be put to death, not listening to the pleas of his lawyers saying he was mentally ill and should not be executed. For some reason, they're only mentally ill after they kill two innocent teenagers and his wife. He never tried to get treatment before that, no documentation of him going to any type of counseling or help, just committed murder because the family was tired of his abuse and were leaving him. No, that's not called passion or mental health. That's called you are insecure coward. Your family wanted to leave you for abusing them. You couldn't accept it, so you murdered them. There's no crime of passion or mental illness or temporary insanity when you're abusing your family to the point they're leaving you and then you kill them. Anyway, his death sentence was converted to life in prison when Washington's Supreme Court ruled in 2018 that the state's use of capital punishment was unconstitutional. Oh, and before I get into the prison justice, he went to court and got an Alford plea. In Cross's case, he argued that the murders of his wife and her two daughters were in no way premeditated, despite the overwhelming evidence presented by prosecutors. This became one of the many sources of tension in the courtroom, according to the 2006 decision rejecting Cross's appeal. After he was sentenced to death, Cross tried to die by suicide twice in the wake of the murders. According to the appellate document, those failed attempts resulted in Cross fracturing his skull, cervical column, injuring his brain, spine, and rendering himself a paraplegic. Here's a coward that abused his family, killed 3, 1 got away, 2 of them being teenagers, took a 13-year-old girl's 2 sisters and her mother from her. The state wants to kill you, you're too scared, you jump off a fucking bunk, crack your head, and now you're in a wheelchair. So you've escaped death twice. I feel like he did that in an attempt to try to show he wasn't mentally right, to try to get his appeal going. However, if he's not a duck, he knows where the pond's at, you know what I mean? Based on his lawyer entering a plea of not guilty due to reason of insanity, I feel that was the reason. He put an appeal in, it would get passed, yet they'd resentence him to death in 2008 and then take him off death row again in 2018. This piece of shit who killed his 2 stepdaughters, his wife, and tried to kill the 3rd stepdaughter, but she got away, gets sentenced to death, taken off death, putting back on death row, tries to kill himself, ends up in a wheelchair, and is just living out his time now. However, he would be found dead, brutally murdered in a shower. That's what you call poetic justice. A man that killed multiple innocent, beautiful women. This is poetic justice in full effect. A man who killed 2 innocent teenagers who had nothing to do with any marital disputes, killed his own wife who had 3 children, gets sentenced to death, gets off death row, tries to kill himself, then gets sentenced back to death row, is a paraplegic, gets taken off death row, and gets wheeled into a high custody shower where he's brutally murdered. Here's a timeline of events where he was disemboweled in a maximum security lockdown unit. March 12, 2022, approximately 1 p.m., closed custody unit shower. Closed custody means you are locked down 24 hours a day until you have to shower maybe 2 or 3 times a week, And in those showers, you're accompanied by COs. They have to open and shut it. Everything's monitored. You're on property restriction, phone restriction. Everything is watched, monitored. You can't go to canteen. Everything is brought to the cell. You do not get razors. You shave your face with an electric razor. It's some of the hardest time I've ever had to do. Going to the shower, you're locked in a unit and you can't get out until they unlock you. Let's see how this happened. At approximately 1:15 p.m., corrections officers at Washington State Penitentiary Delta Unit responded to a distress call regarding an unresponsive inmate in the shower area. Upon arrival, they found Dava Michael Cross, 62, a paraplegic inmate housed in close custody, lying on the wet tile floor of the accessible shower. Upon arrival, they found Dava Cross, 62, a paraplegic inmate housed in close custody, lying on the wet floor tile of the accessible shower stall. He was unresponsive with multiple stab wounds to the torso and neck, and he had been disemboweled in what appeared to be a brutal targeted attack. Then uncovered at 12:55 p.m., E.J. Salas, 35, another close custody inmate serving 20 years for a prior murder conviction, gained access to the shower area. Department of Justice came up with this as the only way that EJ could have gained access to a lockdown shower on a lockdown unit. Number one, a compromised lock or a staff oversight. He may have manipulated his way into the shower schedule or exploited a lapse in the guard's supervision. 2, a time attack. Salas might have hidden nearby, waited for Cross to enter, and rushed into the area. Unauthorized movement. If showering inmates were released in small groups, Salas could have been moving freely within the unit and took advantage of Cross's vulnerability. So they're saying, we don't know what the fuck happened. Somebody fucked up, but this guy's a piece of shit. At 12:56 p.m., the attack. Salas enters the shower area, undetected or unchallenged. He produces a homemade shank, likely crafted from a sharpened piece of metal or plastic, a common weapon in a maximum security facility. Cross, being paraplegic, has limited ability to defend or escape. Salas stabs him repeatedly in the torso and neck, ensuring he cannot call for help. The fatal blow is believed to be a deep wound to the neck or stomach, given that Cross was found disemboweled. Salas leaves Cross to bleed out and quickly exits the shower area. 12:59 p.m., escape and evasion. Salas washes off the blood in another shower stall or wipes himself down to avoid detection. He likely disposes of the weapon in a drain, toilet, or under a fixture to eliminate immediate evidence. He returns to his cell or another common area without drawing any suspicion. Over 15 minutes later, the response. A corrections officer conducting rounds noticed that Cross had not returned from his shower and goes to check. He finds Cross unresponsive with significant blood loss. Facility-wide alarm is raised and medical staff rush to the scene. Given the severity of Cross's wounds, he is pronounced dead at the scene rather than transported for treatment. 1:30 p.m. Lockdown and investigation. The Delta unit is placed on immediate lockdown. Salas, already known as a violent offender, is quickly identified as a suspect due to his prior conflicts and behavioral history. Officers begin reviewing surveillance footage, inmate movement logs, and conducting witness interviews. Salas will be arrested and charged with second-degree murder. Let's not forget, the coward had an argument with his wife, Ms. Baldwin, when he stabbed her, along with her 18-year-old daughter, to death in 1999. David Cross, taken off death row, then killed in prison. That's poetic justice. Remember, he stabbed viciously his wife and stepdaughters to death, tried to kill the other one who got away and ultimately reported it and got him sentenced to prison. He survives death row by getting off 2 different times, survives a suicide attempt where he's a paraplegic. In the end, just like he did to those innocent victims, those innocent girls, innocent wife, scarred so many others along the way, this coward gets stabbed in the face, the neck, and disemboweled in a prison shower. This is the highest custody unit you can be in. Everything's controlled, and like the officer said, they check surveillance after he was murdered. Why do they have surveillance at all? So they can check it after, right? Maximum security closed management facility. An inmate who's doing 20 years and had about 12 years left saw his opportunity to whack this dude. Salas, the murderer, he could have been home in 12 years. But when you see that type of evil, you give him the same justice. Stay out, stay free.